and welcome back to That's Entertainment. This week we are going to be running the first in a series of interviews from people that we find have lots of interesting perspectives on the industry. Today I am joined by Esko Felin, who is the account manager in cinema ad sales at Finnkino, part of the Odeon group, based in Finland. Let's start with the bad news. How has COVID-19 affected the cinemas in Finland over the last 12 months? What are the sort of major trends that you've seen?
Well, I guess when we started in March, everything happened really quickly. In a week or so, the government here in Finland and the officials here just told us that you're done. You're not supposed to be open anymore. Fortunately, gradually, we were able to open again in the summertime. And we started with the biggest cinema or theaters first, and then opened the smaller ones later on. In August, Tenet came out, and people actually, a good amount of people here in Finland actually went and saw it. With the 50% capacity that we had at that point, we had a great turnout for that movie. With the absence of Hollywood movies and titles, we had a bunch of domestic movies that did pretty well as well during that fall time, during August, September, October, even all the way to November when everything closed up again. We've had theaters open locally in different smaller areas where the COVID hasn't rampaged the area in the same way as it has in the bigger cities that we have. There's been a lot of discussion in media about how different industries have been treated differently as far as these restrictions go with COVID. And just to give an example, the restaurants are open, but the movie theaters aren't. So just actually in the last week, they issued an industry-wide letter or missive to the government saying that these restrictions need to be looked at again, because obviously they're not flexible enough and they're not taking into consideration the different surroundings that the cinemas basically provide. They're safe. Especially now that we've been taking these security issues into consideration throughout the whole pandemic. There hasn't been any traces of COVID in these cinemas. There's no exposure. It's throughout and all. It's been 100%. We've done a great job, and the government shouldn't have any problems of having us bring in patrons back again to the movies. But it's been a long haul with that, and the government is still looking at all the industries in the same equal lens, if you will, and we're having a problem with that, and then we're trying to make noises about it right now. But it's slow going. Obviously, since we don't know where the COVID is going to go from here.
Who's kind of leading the charge in Finland for this argument right now back to the government?
Everybody who's working in the industry, even actors, studios, distributors. This letter went out from all of them, basically signed and ready, saying, okay, we need to do something about these restrictions. They don't make any sense. Whereas you have these restaurants open and people getting sick in them, basically. Whereas we haven't had any traces of COVID, tracked back to the movie theater experience at all.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole experience, even when we were open and everything.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what's been going on in terms of the local productions and the titles that were succeeding for you.
We, for instance, had a really good success with the movie Tuve, which is a local movie talking about Tuve Jansson, the creator of Moomins characters. Another movie that we did really well that is on it's basically a franchise called Ricky Rapper. And this was Ricky Rapper and the Wrong Vincent, a local movie distributed by Nordisk Film. Also did over 150,000 viewers here in Finland. And mind you have to remember that we did this all with 50% capacity. So all in all, it was a great result for us, and we really enjoyed having the people come over and see these local movies.
Have you been experimenting with any kind of event cinema or esports or anything like that?
That's a really good question. I mean, the matter of fact is that in Finland, we've been doing that for some time, especially with event cinema. We had Bollywood movies, we had esports, we had opera, soccer. We're talking to a bunch of different partners that we could air some really good content on the big screens, basically. And during the pandemic, though, it's been pretty quiet. We've been kind of shackled by the current situation.
So what kinds of activities have Finnkino been doing on the marketing side in order to educate audiences and keep people in the loop in terms of what's going on?
For one thing, what I would encourage everybody to do and keep doing, I think this is something that the industry has been talking about all this long, is to keep in contact with your customers, basically, and do that with consistent content. So we have different ways how we do that. We obviously have a great following on our social media, where we post all the time and regularly talking about the different movies and different movie themed postings. Basically, it doesn't have to be a premiere or anything, since we can't post about those. But what we can do is talk about the current situation. We can talk about security. We can talk about being a fan of movies, basically, and cinemas, popcorn. We have a great following with our newsletters, basically. There's hundreds of thousands of people that follow us through that as well, and trying to let them know that what's coming up, basically. A lot of people are just asking, when are you going to be open? And most of our time right now is going in customer service, where we're trying to tell them, don't worry about your expiring tickets. They're going to be extended. Right. The dates are going to be extended, right? So you don't have to worry about them. You'll get to come back safely to the theaters, and you don't have to worry about, losing that ticket that you bought, I don't know, last spring, some of them.
What will the industry look like in 5 years' time?
The movie theaters need to understand that with these hybrid models coming up and streaming picking up, sure, it's it's kind of boosted the whole, the whole change already that was happening, I think, in the industry already. We have to provide something magical and unique that you can't get anywhere else, especially not at home, sitting and watching streaming services.
Yeah.
So it's building a community too. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have so much to do, and I think there's so much potential with this cinematic experience that we can provide for our customers. AMC and Universal made a deal in the States where that window is going to be 17 days, and AMC is going to get something out of that after the tail end of it, when it goes to streaming and stuff. But I think with that deal having made, it brought about precedence to the industry.
Yeah.
And started rolling down the mountain. The rock started rolling down the mountain, and then we had HBO Max happening to us. I mean, if you have people doing things like this, there's no other reason to see that we have to change, and we have to accept these changes and just roll with it.
Esko, thank you very much for your time. Been a real pleasure to meet you and talk with you, and look forward to meeting you face to face after the pandemic ends, and maybe we can go off and watch a movie in the Dendy Theatre together.
I would like nothing better than that. That's awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.